This is lesson 1.3, and in this lesson, we're going to watch a little video by my friend and colleague Matt Cutts. In this short video, Matt does a brilliant job, I think, of explaining how Google works with really nice animations, showing you sort of the internal architecture of Google, and why when you search on Google, you're actually not searching the web per se, you're searching our index of the web. Matt makes this really clear. Watch this animation. Tell me if you don't completely agree with me.
Hi, my name is Matt Cutts. I'm an engineer in the quality group at Google, and I'd like to talk today about what happens when you do a web search. The first thing to understand is that when you do a Google search, you aren't actually searching the web. You're searching Google's index of the web, or at least as much of it as we can find. We do this with software programs called spiders. Spiders start by fetching a few web pages. Then they follow the links on those pages and fetch the pages they point to, and follow all the links on those pages and fetch the pages they link to, and so on, until we've indexed a pretty big chunk of the web, many billions of pages stored across thousands of machines. Now, suppose I want to know how fast a cheetah can run. I type in my search, say cheetah running speed, and hit return. Our software searches our index to find every page that includes those search terms. In this case, there are hundreds of thousands of possible results. How does Google decide which few documents I really want? By asking questions, more than 200 of them, like, how many times does this page contain your keywords? Do the words appear in the title? In the URL? Directly adjacent? Does the page include synonyms for those words? Is this page from a quality website, or is it low quality, even spammy? What is this page's page rank? That's a formula invented by our founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin that rates a web page's importance by looking at how many outside links point to it and how important those links are. Finally, we combine all those factors together to produce each page's overall score and send you back your search results about half a second after you submit your search. At Google, we take our commitment to delivering useful and impartial search results very seriously. We don't ever accept payment to add a site to our index, update it more often, or improve its ranking. Let's take a look at my search results. Each entry includes a title, a URL, and a snippet of text to help me decide whether this page is what I'm looking for. I also see links to similar pages, Google's most recent stored version of that page, and related searches that I might want to try next. And sometimes, along the right and at the top, I'll see ads. We take our advertising business very seriously as well, both our commitment to deliver the best possible audience for advertisers and to strive to only show ads that you really want to see. We're very careful to distinguish your ads from regular search results. And we won't show you any ads at all if we can't find any that we think will help you find the information you're looking for. Which in this case, the cheetah's top running speed is more than 60 miles an hour. Thanks for watching. I hope this made Google a little bit more understandable.
This is lesson 1.4, and this is really all about the art of keyword choice. I call it an art because it's not yet a science, and so this is one of these things where your experience and your practice will improve with time. So we're going to talk about some of the details of the art in this lesson because we're really trying to teach you how to choose good keywords for your query. Here's the first thing I want you to know. Think about what it is you're trying to find. So what we're going to practice is the process of going from this vague abstraction, this kind of a general idea, distilling it down. So what is it you're really trying to find? Try to eliminate the peripheral. Focus on the center. One way to do that is to choose words that you think will appear on the perfect page. So in essence, this is not about what you think about the problem, what you think about your query, but what someone else would be writing about that topic. So you want to boil that down, try to get to the essence of the idea. What you really want to do is put yourself in the mindset of the author of the perfect web page. So it's not about what you think, it's about what that person would write, because you're trying to match your query terms to the contents of the perfect web page. So here's an example. Someone comes to me and says, "Hi, I heard there was this old city in San Francisco Bay. People lived there and then they left. What was it called?" So one way to think about this art of keyword choice is to go from the general question, the idea of what you want to look for, and boil it down. That is, try to identify the key words. So one way you could do this is to write out the question the way you see it here. What was the old city in San Francisco Bay called? You go to Google and type that in like that. You get results that are, they're okay, but it doesn't have the whole idea of the city that's been lost, a city where everyone is left, and so on. So these results are good, but they're not exactly what I'm looking for. How can I boil the idea down? One way to do that would be to remove the extraneous terms. In essence, I'm trying to find the high value, most salient, really great words, the great key terms. So here, let's rewrite the query to be Old City San Francisco Bay and try that. This is an interesting idea with respect to the art of keyword choice. Sometimes you have to do it 2 or 3 times to rewrite the query to get one that actually works well. So let's try that. When you see the results now, we've got something else. It's slightly different. It's a list of cities around San Francisco Bay. And that's fine, but again, it's not what I'm looking for. How can we change it yet again? Here's what I did this time. I was thinking, what would it be a city called if everybody left? That sounds like a ghost town, or maybe abandoned town or something. You want to capture that idea in your keywords. So here I wrote ghost town, San Francisco Bay. And once you do that, once you add ghost town, all of a sudden, now I get exactly what I was looking for. This city, Drawbridge, formerly Saline City, is a ghost town with an abandoned railroad station, so on and so on. This is the perfect result. So what I had to do was start with a vague general description of what it is I was looking for, boil it down to the key terms, and when those weren't working, I had to add a term that was very specific to exactly the question I was trying to resolve. So when we compare these 3 different styles, these 3 different queries we made, we start with a very general open one on the left, which didn't really work. We got a little more specific in the second, that was a little better, and finally when we added that precise term, ghost town, abandoned town would work too. But when we added that, we got exactly the answer we wanted. Now, that's the traditional way of doing keyword choice. Google is getting better with time. And so now we have this thing called question answering. So if you have a question that has a pretty clear answer that can be extracted from some web page, go ahead and try it. For example, here we have, how long is the Mississippi River? And you can see the result here is shown as a simple answer. There's a knowledge panel on the right-hand side. It gives you additional information. But let me show this to you live because I want to show a particular point. So here we are in Google. I'm going to say, how long is the Mississippi River? And as you saw, it gives you exactly the right answer. But if you're in Europe or anywhere else in the world other than the United States, you're probably thinking kilometers. So I'm going to modify the query, click up here, and add in km. Again, this is the kind of thing that can be easily extracted from a web page. So go ahead and ask a question like that. Maybe you'll find exactly the right answer for you immediately without having to do a lot of refinement. So now what I'd like you to do, now that you know the art of keyword choice and question asking, what I'd like you to do is go ahead, click on the arrow below, and see if you can't practice your art of keyword choice. This is lesson 1.5 about word order. And the big thing to know is word order actually matters. When you're creating a query, you want to think about what is the most natural order of your query terms. So if you have terms that are, for example, 2 words like a city name, say San Francisco, you probably want to say San Francisco, not Francisco San. So those will matter. But otherwise, word order matters more generally. So it's true that every word in a query matters. as well as the word order sequence mattering. So here's an example. You could do the single term for a query like WHO. What is that? You'll find out quickly. It's the World Health Organization. So this is a really well-known website, so naturally a query like WHO will take you there. But suppose you modify it just a little bit and add the article A in front of this. So what is a WHO or AHU? In this case, it's a reference to the Dr. Seuss book, which has lots of who's as small furry creatures inside of it. And by adding the article in front, it makes a difference. It makes a difference so much so that if you change the article to say the, like this, the Who, you get a reference to an English rock band. So even little words matter. And of course, if you switch that around to who, the, I don't know what you'll get. You'll get something that's probably not exactly what you're looking for in this space. So word order matters. So if we do something like sky blue or blue sky, what kind of difference would that make in the results? Well, if you look here, if I say blue sky, I get a bunch of references to different restaurants, different shops, and so on in the area that I'm living, in this case, in the San Francisco Bay Area. That's great. But if you're looking for sky blue, like the color, if you have to put those words in that order. You can see that here. And when you do the sky blue query, you get this beautiful set of chips and images and colors. It's exactly what you think. So word order really does matter. Think about that as you're putting together your queries. For instance, dog chow is something your dogs eat. A chow dog is a very fuzzy animal. So that is an example of a real difference in word order. It's also important to realize that when you're doing your queries, capitalization doesn't matter to Google. Yes, it's important typographically, but here you see two queries side by side, Red Delicious in all lowercase and Red Delicious with a weird mixed case. And you can see the results are exactly the same. So capitalization in the middle, the beginning, the end, it doesn't matter. We found that people don't do it consistently enough for us to use it as a search signal, so we've just given up on it. On the other hand, special characters do matter. So a couple of years ago, lots of special characters were just dropped. They were difficult to index, but we figured out how to do that. And now you can search for different kinds of symbols, like the paragraph symbol, the radical sign, the not equal sign, and so on. In particular, you can use these for technical queries like C++ or C#, both programming languages. But when you use that character, the sharp symbol or the pound symbol, you can use it either before a term or after a term. Notice that if it's got a space between it, so sharp character, space, and then a second character, second term, that's actually two different queries, two different query terms separated. If you put them adjacent to each other with no space between them, that becomes an independent search term. That's how you can search for hashtags. We also look for things like dollar signs or @ symbols or percent symbols and so on. And again, if you put it next to the term you're searching for, that's a special unit, a thing you can search for in and of itself. We also allow you to search for characters you might not have thought about. You can search, for example, for Greek characters like omega or alpha. You can also search for emojis. So in this example, I've got I heart New York. You could replace that with I heart whatever, and you will be able to search for terms and sentences that appear anywhere on the web like that. And we can index all of the emojis in the world. So the beer character or whatever you'd like to search for, we can search for that. Another thing to know about your searching is that Google has an incredibly great spell correction system. So we've discovered that there are 30,000 creative ways to misspell Britney Spears' name. Who knew? But we now correct all of those into the appropriate spelling for that person. But I want to show you something in particular. So obviously we have a lot of ways to misspell Britney Spears, but if I do B-R-I-T-T-T like this, it should spell correct it, right? And it says yes, in fact it does. But now if I want to look for my friend who actually spells hers in an interesting way with 3 T's, what I would do is put double quotes around the variant spelling of her name, like that. So this is not the misspelling, I'm saying with the double quotes, I want really that spelling. And when you do that, it says, did you mean Brittany in that spelling? But in fact, you can see there are multiple people who really do spell their name with 3 T's. Who knew? This is the way you can find it. Now what I'd like you to do is go on to the next activity, click on the arrow, and see if you can use your newly acquired skills to solve the questions there. This is lesson 1.6 about how to find text on a web page. This is a really fundamental skill that you need to know. Not only does it work for web search, it works for almost any application. You can use this in Acrobat, PowerPoint, your favorite slide presentation method. It's a really fundamental skill for almost all of your online work. Here's the problem. Suppose you're on this web page, and it's a long web page which shows you the results of a race that you ran in. In this case, it's an 8K race. There were 1,000 people in the race. You want to find your time. You're not going to scroll, or would you? Don't do this. Don't scroll one page at a time to find your time. Use instead the Find Text in Page trick. I'll show that to you right now. The way you do it is if you're on a Macintosh, you would type Command F. That is, it's a 2-fingered move. You hold down the Command key with this finger and then press F. That brings up the Find Text option. If you're on a PC, it's Control F, but it's exactly the same thing. But now you know how to do it on either this kind of machine or that kind of machine. So one of the two of them will work for you. What this does is it allows you to type in a piece of text, a little tiny snippet, say your name, and it will find that text somewhere on that page. Incredibly handy when it's, like I said, on a long web page. Here, for example, I've done a search for the results on the 8K race results. So I typed in Control F, and I typed my name. You see that in the upper right corner. What it did is it jumped me down to this point here and said, this is your entry in this very long page. You see why this is useful? Now, one thing to notice is that it works a little bit differently from browser to browser, from system to system. So, for example, in Firefox, when you type Control F or Command F, the search text box appears in the lower right, way down here. So, by contrast, Safari puts it way up there, and Chrome puts it somewhere in the middle. It actually pops up a new box when you do that search. Let me show this to you live because it'll make a little bit more sense. Here we are in Firefox, and I've opened up a page, a Wikipedia page, for August 2010 in sports. This allows me, with the Control F, Command F trick, to find any text in here. So, someone may have mentioned to me that Croatia was important in sports in 2010. Who knew? But let's try to find it. So this is a very long page, right? It goes on and on and on and on. There's a lot of sporting events in 2010. But now I can type Command F, because I'm on a Macintosh. So I just typed it, and look in the lower left corner. This is now the Find Text box. So I'm going to type Croatia. Now watch what happens as I type. Croatia. It's jumped me to the first instance, the first time in this long web document that Croatia appears. Now if you look down here, it says you've got a little down arrow to go to the next one, but over on the right hand side here it says this is one of 10 matches. That is, the word Croatia appears 10 times in this Wikipedia article, and I can either hit enter to jump to the next one, click, 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 and that takes me to the next, or you can use the up and down arrows to go down or up. Okay, let's contrast this. Chrome has the same. Here we're on the same page. This is a long Wikipedia page. Now watch in the upper center part here. I'm going to type now Command F, and now I can say Croatia, and I get the same kind of thing. Again, we get the count, so we have 10 instances of the word Croatia. This is the first one. I can use the up and down arrows to move between them. Or I can use enter. So now you know the trick. This is an incredibly powerful thing to know. Here's why you need to know this. It turns out that if you know how to find text on a web page, you're really speeding up your ability to do searches. So you can go and use your regular Google skills to find the page, but then where is the thing you really search for on that page? And that's what Control-F, Command-F is all about. It allows you to jump from the top to potentially way down at the bottom of the page. This turns out to not only speed up your search, but it puts you in the top 10% of all searchers. It turns out that 90% of all internet searchers do not know this fundamental skill. So now you do, and you're in the top 10%. But even more importantly, it allows you to prove that the text you seek, like a name or a figure or some interesting piece of data, really exists on this page. It also allows you to show that this text does not exist on the page. So this gives you the chance to prove the negative, and you never get that chance in real life. So now you can do this. What I'd like you to do is to think about how to do this in the next assignment. Keep in mind what I said, that it may vary from browser to browser, or from operating system to operating system. You have to learn to be a little adaptable as these things change over time, because what I showed you today may not be true in a year. They may use purple instead of green, or violet instead of orange. It may appear in the upper right or the upper left. Be adaptable, but it's the same idea underneath, allowing you to type in a piece of text and find it on the page. And it works in almost every online application. Go to the activity for this lesson, and then I'll see you in class 2, where